Hey guys, welcome to our introductory episode of God Speaks. We just wanted to do a quick video to kind of explain the idea behind this podcast. We had In Dispute podcast for a couple years, and we loved doing that podcast, but it became a lot to have on our plates with everything else that we started doing since the beginning of the podcast. I mean, In Dispute was kind of the beginning of our church. It was kind of the beginning of our friendship. Even one of the first things we ever did together was start this podcast of In Dispute. And from there, things just snowballed, and now we have a church, and I don't even know that when we started In Dispute if you had your second child yet.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not sure.
So I mean, just the busyness of life, and a podcast like In Dispute took a lot of time and a lot of studying and a lot of notes, which means that was time away from family, time away from preparation for our church notes, and so we just decided that it was best to, at least for now, move on from that podcast. But we still have the podcast itch in us. We like to put stuff out there for people to hear, and we like to talk about Jesus, and we like to talk about the Bible. So
absolutely,
I had this idea. It was kind of twofold. The first idea came when I saw this YouTube show called Hot Ones, and it's basically an interview show where the host interviews a celebrity or a sports star, whoever, actor, actress. And while he's interviewing them, they're eating hot wings. And as the interview goes, the hotter the sauces they are. And I just thought that's a really cool idea, to just sit at a table and talk back and forth while you're enjoying something that, like chicken wings. You're just eating and you're talking, and it's fun because you're getting to see the personalities of the host and the personality of the actor or whoever is there, but it's also you're getting to learn about the people that are involved in the interview. And I thought, man, that would be really cool if it could come up with something like that for like Christianity, like something spiritual, something biblical. And one of the things that me and Brad have always done since we met is we've liked to try strange sodas. And so I thought, what if we take this concept where we try these strange sodas, and we talk about the Bible, and we do kind of like that Hot Ones YouTube show. And I was kind of thinking, well, what would the premise of the podcast be? What would the discussion be about? And I think, I'm not sure where the idea came from. Maybe there's a podcast called Coach and Joe. It's done by a pastor in South Carolina, Chad Norris. And in one of their episodes, one of the guys just threw out a question without it being rehearsed or talked about, and he was kind of on the spot, and it was real time answering this question, but also real time listening for the voice of God. Mm-hmm. And that's where I thought, man, it would be really cool to have a podcast where there's no preparation, there's no notes. We don't know what we're even going to be talking about. And we just randomly pick a scripture and we allow God to speak to us in that moment, what it is that he wants to speak to us through that specific passage. Because I wholeheartedly believe that no verse in the Bible is there for no reason.
Right.
His scripture is not spoken without void. I believe that we could read a single passage or a single portion of scripture and God can speak to us in that moment and give us a revelation about that passage for us in the moment. The foundation of scripture is always going to be the same. God can use scripture to speak different things throughout our entire lives.
Right. We can learn something new.
Right.
For us right now, right here, you and me, Brandon and Brad, we can learn something new. God can use that to inspire our lives, change our lives, even though the basics of that passage are always going to be the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you can read one passage, 10 times, and then the 11th time, you're like, oh, well, I've never thought of it like that. It's like something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're trying to do with this podcast is we're not trying to like change what the Bible is teaching us, but we're trying to listen to what God is speaking from his word to us specifically, or maybe even to someone that's listening. God might give us a word that we don't even know what it means to us, but to someone that's listening, it might be exactly what they need to hear.
Right.
So that is the idea behind God Speaks, is that we have an app on my phone here. There's a website called Bible Dice. If you ever want to just randomize a scripture, you can go there. You can hit a button and it'll give you a random passage, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get on there. We're gonna hit the button and we're gonna read it, and we're gonna let God speak, and we're gonna try strange flavored sodas while we do it.
Yeah. You kind of hinted at it, but one thing that I'm really excited about with this new podcast is not just the free time that you will get from not having to prepare, but when we were doing In Dispute, a lot of the preparation is, even though we tried to stray from it, there was a lot of opinion that ended up coming out. The conversations ended up being an hour long, so we're putting our own thoughts and opinions and our own past stories in it, and we're listening to commentators throughout the week on the different topics and stuff like that. And commentators and our opinions and our stories, like those are an important part of us being teachers. I don't know a pastor in the world that doesn't use those things. But at the same time, those can get overpowering at times when we're reading the scripture. So I'm just really excited to be able to put that aside, and we're still going to bring stuff to the table just because we're humans. That's just how it works. But I'm hoping that as we get deeper and deeper into these episodes, that it's less and less of Brandon and Brad and more of us learning what it sounds like to hear God's voice, and learning what it looks like to read a passage word by word and ask questions and to dig deeper into the passage. And because we're doing it in that way, I'm really excited, because if anybody that's watched or listened to any of the In Dispute podcasts, as much as Brandon and I are, great friends, we care about each other, we both love Jesus, we're two different people. So we have different views and different opinions on certain passages and on certain different theological concepts. And so what I'm hoping, what I'm expecting, is that God's going to use these podcast episodes to help you and I both accomplish a goal that we've always had, which is to let Scripture interpret Scripture, and to try to as we grow older and grow more mature in the Lord, that it's less of Brad and Brandon and more of the Lord, more of the Scripture. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just really hoping that he's going to challenge us through conversations or many disagreements, and help us to say, okay, is this an emotion that I'm feeling right now, or is this actually what the passage is saying? Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be really helpful. My hope is that it'll help the listeners as well.
Yep. And the other good thing about this podcast is we're hoping to keep it short, like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
a mini Bible study almost.
It's not going to take you all a week to listen to a single episode because we don't ever shut up.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a single. It could be a single verse or maybe a couple verses. Sometimes when you randomize it, it gives you like 4 verses. Sometimes it just gives you 1. So we're not going to have a lot of content that's going to take an hour to dissect. We're just going to hopefully keep it simple and short, and we're just going to let God speak. And so stay tuned because we will be releasing episodes in the future. We will keep you updated. Keep an eye on our social media. Mm-hmm. We have Facebook and Instagram right now. So
if you haven't liked our Facebook page or been invited to it, it's facebook.com/GodSpeaksPodcast.
And Instagram, you can just search for God Speaks Podcast.
Cool.
So we will see you soon, guys.